Okay, we're good now. Welcome back, everybody. Um, Thanks for joining us again, and we'll try to keep this one at 45 minutes. If not, we'll all jump back on a quick link. So, Jess, I sent out an email last night. I know you wanted to get to know the artist better, but like I said, we only have 45 minutes. And if you give us 45 minutes to talk about our artwork, we can talk all 45 minutes about our artwork. So some of the questions that came in, I had 3 people ask, TikTok. What's TikTok? Do we have to be interested in TikTok? Are we too old for TikTok?
Well, as visual artists, I don't think you're too old or out of date or anything like that. It's not an age thing. It's about how interesting and exciting you are, in my opinion. I personally do not have a TikTok account. Once the US military banned it from, I'm not in the military, but once they banned service members from having it because of security concerns, I'm like a hyper kind of like secure person. So I just said, you know what, forget it. Like I'm personally not that invested in learning more about another platform with the potential risk. But who knows?
I think that kind of answers it.
Yeah, so I mean, I've used it on my, so my intern at the former firm that I was at had it, and I would frequently sit down with her and another intern of ours who both had it and both had some success with it. One who was using it just to teach others how to stream their video gaming, which is esports is very popular right now, and the other intern used it just to watch other people's videos. So I definitely have like seen enough of it, but based on some of the questions that came in and the questions we had yesterday, I did look up the distribution of age in the US for users in 2020. I saw a study that came out a few months ago that said they saw a significant increase between 30 to 39-year-olds, which I can see, but it's still very heavily weighted in like 29 and under. So my theory is that we're seeing more and more of the older generation on TikTok because they're stuck at home with their kids. So I still don't think it's the kind of thing where people are making purchases through it just yet. They're still trying to figure out how to go about the sponsorship and advertising revenue, just the way that Instagram has done it right now. So if you're going to pick 1 or 2 platforms to focus on right now, I would make it, I would not put TikTok in my top 2, if that were me.
That's a good transition to that we were all overwhelmed and like, do we have to be on every social media platform?
No, it's better to do 1 or 2 really well than to do 5 kind of half-assed. Sorry for the language.
So, like Twitter, some people were kind of like,
Yeah, like
really Twitter people.
I don't post on Twitter as much as I use it to my advantage. So I am very active on Twitter from the consumer side. It's where I get instant news. Same with Reddit. Like I use that for getting news instantly, but I don't post as much. So you can use Twitter to your advantage because they have the capability of creating lists, which I love because I'm like hyper organized. So I can create lists of the teams that are my clients, and I can just check in the morning and see what they've been up to, or lists of news resources that I want to see what the latest headlines are. So that's how I think it's worth using Twitter to your advantage, just to stay in the loop. And they now have topics that you can follow, which is a new feature that just came out recently. So I actually went through last night just to make sure before I told you guys there is a visual arts section, and then underneath that specifically, I believe like painting, illustration, sculpture. So you can actually just follow topics if you don't know who the influencers are in that space or don't even care, but you can actually just see what the trending content is on those topics. So that's always helpful. And social media is one that is worth following just to stay up to date on product changes, feature changes, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I saw Facebook's news about the shops because I was following them on Twitter, not on Facebook.
I don't
So
even
it was like the top trending post on Twitter from Facebook's Twitter account, which was funny.
Yeah, I saw it through that Facebook stocks might go up because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's their most aggressive push into some of what Amazon's able to do. And they have a massive network just like Amazon. So I could get into stocks if you want, but I'm not going to. My husband's a trader. So
we have enough to worry about.
Yeah, that's like it's not a good scene in my house right now.
All right, so here's one of the artists put their target audience is Instagram artists, colleagues, galleries, art collectors, but most of the interactions come from friends. And it's based, how does Instagram, wait, where was it? How does Instagram following a lead to business grow? So how, it's just basically, or the friends and everything like that, how do we have it grow organically to get those collectors and increase the audience?
This is, we had a good conversation about this last night, you and I, about using Facebook to your advantage because it's more focused on friends and family versus strangers. So that's where our conversation today, I just like a couple of baseline questions you should be able to answer to then determine your best strategy going forward. First and foremost, it's who's your audience? Who do you want to be selling to? If it is only friends and family, that's fine. Like you can have plenty of success. And that's where, you choose a platform like Facebook to do that versus Twitter or Instagram. If your strategy is to get a specific demographic or income level, age range, there's going to be different platforms for each of those. So it's very important for you to kind of lay out, it's a content strategy as well as a brand strategy. I would put those in two separate buckets. Who are you? What do you want to talk about? How is your artwork do you want it to be perceived? And then the content strategy is how do you want to execute on that? What type of content should you be putting out? How are you targeting that audience and what platforms are you using?
In each platform,
that kind of answer.
Yeah, each platform should have a different message.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation, especially to this group where we're all trying to do, a few different things really well, your full-time job is creating, not marketing yourself. So I would, to start, pick one platform to focus on and do that really well. So based on, our conversation last night, Jeff, about most of your sales coming through friends and family on Facebook, we said, you can either go all in on that and really lean into that, or what you'd have to probably do is forego some short-term profits by ignoring Facebook for a little bit and focus on an Instagram strategy where it may not pay off in the short term, but could potentially pay off in the long term if you do it right. So you're kind of in a difficult situation, you specifically, but
right,
I imagine a lot of people here are in that situation where you don't necessarily have the time or the ability to just abandon what is working to go for something that's not. But that's where it can help to dedicate just like incremental amounts of time every day. Maybe it's an hour a night you spend just poking around Instagram, if that's the platform. Obviously, that's the one that I would recommend for most if you're looking to get outside of the friends and family realm, and really just dedicate some time, a little bit every day, instead of watching whatever. I watch Jeopardy every night. So instead of watching Jeopardy every night, I could try to learn something new for half an hour, and then slowly build a content strategy around that. Yeah.
Last night I put out my first story because I'm not going to put that in my grid. I'm going to make a story out of it. I was going to go live, but I got a little bit nervous. So I guess one of the conversations that Jess and I had was, and we're going to kind of talk about more selling artwork instead of doing social media just to get out there, because it ends up going into one of the discussions that we had was the whole idea about social network is to create a funnel. Mm-hmm. Where are we driving everybody, and what's the reason to have a social media presence? Basically, it is to drive you to the website or drive you to a show or drive you to a gallery show, to make somewhere along the end is to sell artwork. The thing that Jess and I were talking about is I've been doing these prints for COVID, putting up on Facebook and doing videos with them. And I was selling them really well through Facebook. I wasn't getting any traction on Instagram. And we were just talking about that, why I wasn't getting the traction that I wanted to on Instagram. It was because I was new to the platform and not using it properly.
Yeah, that's like, so for anything that we do in marketing, the first question is always, first, why should anybody care? No offense to anybody. I ask myself, everything I do, I ask myself, why should anybody care? And second, what's the call to action? If you can answer those two things, then you can create a strategy for leading people there. And if your ultimate goal is to sell more artwork, which should be, that's not going to happen usually through Facebook or Instagram. It'll happen because somebody saw it and either reached out to you, Jeff, which is what I did. I saw your email, so I texted you and said, you better hold one for me. And, oh, I'm seeing the messages. What did Jeff use wrong? That's funny. Sorry. That was funny. All right. I get distracted very easily. So, yeah. So if it's not leading to, and it shouldn't constantly be a sales pitch. It should almost be very thoughtful in a way that you're showing the process, and then eventually you get to the, hey, you can buy this piece. So going back to the example I shared yesterday of CJ Hendry, and this is just how I learn best, is through examples. So I hope this is helpful. She's posting progress pictures of her illustrations, posting behind the scenes of the studio. You saw the one of her like sharpening the pencil, but her sharpening the pencil didn't say swipe up to buy my print, you know? There has to be like enough thoughtful content out there that people see how lovable you are. That's like the best way of saying it. And how engaged you are with your artwork and the beautiful behind the scenes stuff, to then when you get to that point of saying, hey, could you give me some money for this, in a better way than that, they're already bought into you, versus right off the bat you being like, hey, this is for sale, buy this, and like, oh, I don't really know you. That's just, unfortunately, you're dealing with a generation on social media, if that's where you're starting, that makes more thoughtful, intentional, personal purchases rather than, you know, what we're used to, which is really just like a corporate ad that leads you to buy a pair of shoes. That's just not, unfortunately, how marketing is working these days. So what CJ is doing is showing you behind the scenes. Most of her artwork, nobody on Instagram can afford, truthfully. So her call to action to that massive following is to come see her live shows. And I think it's once, maybe once a year, I think. So she spends all year marketing that, and I don't know what she does to sell the artwork. She has an agent actually that helps sell the artwork at a very, very high price point to collectors. But the goal on social media is to get everybody to come physically to the shows.
I think, yeah.
But that's just one strategy. You have to have your own.
Two of the things I know that I did wrong on the Instagram was that the video is too long. Instagram has a shorter video than Facebook. So then I had to move everybody over to Instagram TV. And I just think the messaging was wrong for Instagram. It should have been prettier pictures and more of the process. Keep the process for Instagram. Family, friends, and drinking is for Facebook. And that's why people bought through that, because they were all about drinking. So, and where Instagram is more about art and art making. That's where I draw the lines between the two.
Yeah, it's more about the craft, because you're talking to strangers who want to feel inspired and awestruck by what you're putting out there.
And building the audience.
Yeah, and again, like those words, like inspiring, whatever it is, I'm serious, like get a whiteboard, start writing out what kind of reaction do you want people to have when they see your work. And that it's like a guiding star, like I said yesterday, for you to say, like, these are the brand attributes I want to showcase on this platform. And then you're not kind of racking your brain every day with, oh, should I put this out there? Is that weird? Is it not? Does it fit your aesthetic style? Will it elicit this response? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just a helpful guide to your brand.
Do you know what the recommended length for a video on Instagram is?
So with IGTV, when we were working together, Jeff, even that was a couple of years ago, you couldn't have an IGTV video in your feed, but now it does show up in your feed. So that's all good. Instagram, I think, is the only one that does not track completion rate. So I don't have any stats or anything on how long the video should be, but other platforms will let you track, and completion rate is whether or not somebody finished the video. So you might have, 1,000 views, but if only 10 people finished it, that means they got bored with it and moved on. So the other platforms allow you to track that, which is good.
Here's a good one that was kind of generic. We asked what the target audience was, and they said, need help with this, but generally people who care about the environment, that have money. When I get up and running, I plan to partner with groups like IUCN and Natural Climate Solutions, donating a percentage of the profits to their cause. What would you suggest for hashtags or tagging something to get that audience that she's looking for?
That's a loaded question. I would love to know more about like what the actual artwork is, or the product is that you're selling. But platforms, so obviously I have a strong, and this is one opinion, you're getting one opinion here, that Instagram people are using now as an activism tool as well. So if that's a strong piece of your messaging, that's the right place to do it. Twitter is that way as well, but it's very timely, and they're talking about very specific issues in that moment. And it can be, I actually think Twitter is kind of a nasty place. I don't really love. I read through it for the headlines, but if you click on the comments, people are just horrible. So I move on from there. Facebook as well has specific groups that are focused on that type of activism, where a lot of them ban you trying to sell something. So be very cautious there, but it might make sense to join some of those specific groups and just participate. If something in your personal profile leads to the fact that you have a business page or an Instagram page that's actually selling artwork focused around that topic, it might be a good way, but you'd really want to start tracking leads through those specific platforms. And what I mean by that is when it leads to that call to action to your website, using Google Analytics, you should be able to see where all the traffic came from and how many of them ended up purchasing something from you. So unfortunately, we're kind of going in a different direction, but the name of the game is analytics, because you could have the best strategy in the world, but unless you know whether it's working or not, it's kind of pointless. You'll waste a lot of time just doing rather than actually knowing what's working.
That's a good segue, because I was looking at an old presentation about Google Analytics and the idea of Google Alerts.
Yes.
Does everybody know what Google Alerts are? No? Take it away, Jessica.
Yeah, so if you, I think it's google.com/alerts. First of all, you should absolutely
have this,
own the domain name, but also track the Google Analytics of your name. And if you have specific titles to your artwork, you're going to want to track that as well. And that's how you can be sure that nothing's being used improperly. That's only text-based, not visual-based. So take that with a grain of salt. But I use Google Alerts specifically to track, like I said, my name, any entities that are tied to me specifically, and all of my clients. So then, Jeff, you just mentioned somebody who's specifically tied to certain causes. Setting up a Google alert to that organization or those causes will ping you immediately. You can set it to instant or daily or whatever, but you'll get pinged immediately and be able to comment on that topic or share something around that topic. And being an influencer in that specific space, that topic, being the first to know is key. Not just having a good opinion, but getting it out there quickly is very important. So I use Google Alerts specifically to keep up with the teams, the leagues, the clients, and all of those things on my side, and the technology and my competitors.
I use Google Alerts just with my name. So then I can track the press releases and stuff coming from galleries, or if somebody mentions me in a story, I can reach out to the editor or the writer of the story and say, thanks for mentioning me and my artwork too.
And then I also use a service. I'm just going to mention this. We could go into a really deep wormhole here, but I use a service called Haro, Haro. It's called Help a Reporter Out. And you can sign up to get alerts anytime a reporter puts out a request for an interview. It comes 3 times daily or something. Like, it's very, very overwhelming, and you get a list of everything. But if you get that one thing from, Fast Company or Forbes who's looking to interview visual artists, that's worth doing. So that Help a Reporter Out is something that I subscribe to, and I get pings. More so, I use it personally now, but I used to use it very heavily professionally, and the firm I work for got a ton of leads there just to talk about, what are we doing that's innovative. And that was specifically geared towards sports and technology, but you get a list of everything that comes through. So you'd have to then, just filter that out, sift through it quickly, and look for a topic that pertains to you.
One of the other topics that was in our list of things to talk about was email marketing. Does anybody have any more questions about social media? Then we'll jump into email marketing for 10 minutes. Raise your hand, say aye. All right. How about email marketing?
Can I do a poll real quick?
Sure.
How many people have their own website? How many people host it on Squarespace? Okay. Do any of you do email marketing right now for yourself? And are you using MailChimp? I guess is the last question. Okay, cool. Thanks. That always helps. So for those that do not have their own website or do not use an email campaign service right now, if you're looking for like an all-in-one bundle, Squarespace is the one that does it all. But I have historically used Squarespace for my website and MailChimp for email campaigns. I liked the flexibility of it. So it's very important to have, like I said, the call to action that leads to something that you can analyze, because email marketing isn't get directly into the inbox of people that are interested in your work. But unless you can track how many people actually clicked on it, went to your site, and then made a purchase, again, you're kind of talking into a void. So I'm trying to like start from the beginning. I love email marketing. I really do, but everything has to be intentional and very purposeful. You all get emails every day. What is the stuff that you just delete? There are some that you probably don't even open and don't even unsubscribe to because you don't even want to deal with it. What are those brands doing that makes you so repulsed by them? And do the opposite of that. On the flip side, what are the ones that you get excited to check? And it's probably not one that comes every day. It's probably not even one that comes every week, because you are busy people and only want to see the best of the best when it comes to certain content. Some of the best email campaigns are mostly visual and not very text-based. So that's where you guys have the edge. There's kind of it's a double-edged sword on that one, because depending on who your audience is, you may be dealing with email clients that can't accept imagery, like some enterprise, services and corporate accounts usually mark that as spam. But if you can find that delicate balance between imagery and text, you can make a really compelling case for using email marketing. It should tie back into your overall strategy of why should anybody care and what's the call to action. Does that Makes sense. Does anybody have specific questions about email marketing too? Because I don't want to ramble at you. I would love to help specifically.
There's a couple other programs that we had on our thing to mention: Constant Contacts, Wix, SendGrid, and everybody. She got me turned on to this reallygoodemails.com. Reallygoodemails.com.
Yeah,
You
I love it. I'm glad you bookmarked it. That's a great place. If you can't tell by now, my mantra is not to reinvent the wheel. It's to figure out, what do you love as a consumer? What are other people doing really well that excites you? And more importantly, get feedback from others. So, don't feel like you're in a silo having to figure everything out by yourself because you're just one person. Talk to your friends and show them your drafts, and make sure you're dealing with people that are honest with you, not yes people, because you want honest feedback about whether or not they think something's working or could be done better. But reallygoodemails.com, or I think it's .com or something, is a really great place to get inspiration on email campaigns for all different topics. And yeah, what was the other specific question?
One of the other things to do with your email, if you're running an email program, break it down to lists. So you have, your galleries. I have galleries, buyers, artists, friends, and family. And then if you're a teacher or something, break it down into students. So you can send different emails to the different people so they're all not getting, and it makes them feel like they're a little more special. They're getting a personalized email that comes out instead of just a generic email for everybody. If you're emailing your collectors that you're going to have you're going to be teaching a show, teaching a class, that doesn't really help the collectors. Send them something else.
That's a really good way of at least mitigating the risk a little bit for people unsubscribing to content that is not relative to them. So segmentation is key. And then once you get down to that level, you really have to understand each audience. They want to see, how often they want to see it. And you should be able to track that, again, using whatever service. How many people clicked it, how many people unsubscribed, how many people opened it, and measure that against the industry average as a place to start. That's what I usually do. How many of those clicks led to purchases? Even more important.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And then how are you engaging with those people once they purchase something? So now you have an identified list of buyers. Don't just chalk it up as a win and move on, but you say, okay, how can I really lean into these people that are being supportive, find out what they want more of. Right now, what I'm going through at work is a very extensive user group study. So we're actually researching. It can be expensive or time consuming if you do it yourself or if you hire somebody, but I would recommend doing it yourself, start slowly, and talk to a few people that have been clients of yours in the past, people that you trust that wouldn't be turned off by the idea of answering a few questions about what type of content they like to see, what makes them decide to buy an original piece of artwork, and then kind of bring that back to your drawing table and figure out how you can make that work for you.
All right, now we got 10 more minutes. We had one question about explain the problem with having an image that will get blocked in an email.
So email campaigns that have a banner image that's too large. And this is just because my background's in graphic design and photography as well as marketing, so I know it should be no larger than 1200 pixels wide or something like 1200 pixels wide if you're using Photoshop to bring things down. Otherwise, it will immediately kind of get blocked by some email servers. I've been getting newsletters from one group that only uses images. It drives me nuts. Not only because then can I not search back for something that was, it's a list of speakers, write it out, I want to go back and find it. And my corporate email account started moving them directly to spam because each email had 10 images, and that was it. So if you don't have text in it at all, that's like a surefire mistake to make. So limit it to ideally, a banner image per section, but don't overdo it. You should be able to send out some test emails to a small group as well and see how many were actually delivered.
And don't use exclamation points in the header. I learned that through the studio tour, that an exclamation point at the end automatically basically sent it to junk mail.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
And keep them short and sweet. Nobody reads anymore.
Yep.
And then it's a great example too to send. This is another thing to send them to the funnel. Yep. Have 2 or 3 options. I like to throw a couple of paintings on the bottom and just see which one people pick more.
Yep.
And then when they pick on that one, I can follow up with, hey, I saw that you liked blah, blah, blah. Are you interested in it? It's kind of scary with all the information that you can actually find and drill down when you're doing these email campaigns.
It's only scary if you're not making it work for you.
Well, no, when you don't
if you're a marketer, it's a dream come true.
Oh, yeah. That's why I don't click on any emails. Because if you click on an email, you get a phone call. Hey, you
new regulations in the EU and California, which were meant to protect consumers, were just like such. I hate it. Oh, this is being recorded. It made things very difficult just to, have to like tag them and then send them a request that said, do you want to sign up versus like, hey, I signed you up for my email. So definitely be wary about where everybody's located. That's why you'll see on some forms now you do have to select which state you're in, because if you're in California or the UK, you can't just sign people up for email campaigns anymore and blast them whenever you want.
I'm going through some of our notes when we actually wrote this program. Also with the emails, don't always be selling. That was one of the things that we.
Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention too is that I'd recommend not treating each one of these tools as a separate tool. They should all be working together in a cohesive plan. So in your email campaigns, if you're looking to push your Instagram account because you're trying to get more followers there, you can include that you have videos on your Instagram account where people can click there and go see it. It doesn't have to lead to your website if you don't want it to. So there's different ways to kind of make that work for you. And then something like in the link in the bio of your Instagram account could be around a giveaway. And if you sign up for the email list with the link in your bio, you're giving away a free print. Who doesn't like free art? So that's a good way of like collecting information and also cross-promoting your other platforms so that you're not just solely like siloed into one, if that makes sense.
And the key is to move everybody around through those. So if you have your Instagram followers, you want them to sign up for your email list. So then you can privately email them on the side. It's moving all your clients between platforms.
That's one of the accounts I was following that I really loved for home improvement had, and you can use this in any creative way you want. She had the 10 cheapest bed frames or something, like 10 bed frames that were on sale or whatever, but it was only being shared in her newsletter. So if you wanted that information, you had to sign up for her newsletter, but she shared it on Instagram. So it has to be compelling enough of a case. And in that case, somebody who just bought a bed frame and didn't want one didn't need it. But in my case, I had just bought a house and I wanted to know. So it really helps to know who your audience is. And then what you can do in that situation, which I love, is see who signed up in that time frame of the giveaway. And then if you're looking to be sponsored or on Instagram, the ultimate goal for most influencers is to have partnerships with brands. You can say, okay, Bed Bath & Beyond, I have these 100 emails of people that I know are interested in furniture. I'll do a sponsored post and you get paid for it. So there's different creative ways around having all of those metrics work for you, but then also being able to partner and collaborate with other brands and other artists as well.
All right.